afternoon. I call to order the meeting of the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee for June 26, 2023. Our first item of business tonight is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or additions, we can go ahead and proceed with the agenda. Next, we need to move to approval of the June 12, 2023 Transportation Committee minutes. If there's any changes or additions, seeing none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vento. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Carter. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Now I'm going to turn it over to Interim Metro Transit General Manager Leslie Kinderas for employee recognition.
All right, Chair Barber, committee members, thank you. Today, we're pleased to bring forward several employees from our Marketing and Transit Information Division at Metro Transit for employee recognition this month. These employees' responsibilities include providing customers with accurate information in a variety of formats. And as you can imagine, that's become even more challenging in recent years when we've had a series of service changes, first because of the pandemic and then because of our operator shortage. But it's also very timely because we just finished implementing our June service changes, which allowed us to start adding back service because our workforce has improved, has grown. So today, I want to recognize that Director of Marketing and Transit Information, Bruce Howard, is in the room, and also Ben Rakowski, the Senior Manager of Transit Information, is here to introduce his team members that we're honoring today. So Ben, please come forward.
All right, well, good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Really appreciate the opportunity to recognize the team here representing both our Transit Information Department and Creative Services Department, who are responsible for providing information to our customers about service changes throughout our system. And Leslie mentioned, we just had a service change, so fresh off the heels of that, and because of that, a number of the people who would be here today are on vacation, getting some much-needed rest, but celebrating another job well done. But really, the group here, they're responsible for proofing our printed materials, our pocket schedules, updating our bus stop signs at over 12,000 locations, updating all our shelter and facility signs, the posters you see at our BRT stations, our rail kiosks, the website schedules, and all the data that supports our customer information tools. So a very busy group. They're used to service changes happening every quarter and handling them. The last 3 years, as Leslie mentioned, really have been a challenge. However, we've had both the pandemic and an operator shortage, which has led to just a lot of changes, the historic volumes of changes. So not only have they had a lot of work to do, but often on short notice as we're trying to get the right levels of service out that we can operate. That means we've had shorter than desired timeframes to make those changes. And they've just done a fantastic job making sure that information gets updated and it's accurate and available for our customers. So I can't speak enough of the just customer-centered approach this group has. They know that service changes, whether they're positive or negative, they have an impact on our customers. We need to make sure that we have the information available, and to a person, they'll go the extra mile to make sure that when a customer goes out to that bus stop or to the rail platform, they've got the right information to take our service. And I really appreciate working with a team like this. So I'm going to just individually provide some information and recognition. First, I want to start with our bus stop signage. We have Dan Callahan here, who's our senior transit information installer. He and Natua Zhang handle all of our 12,000 plus bus stop signs. As you can see here, they apply the decals on our signs, they get them out on the street, they update our maps. Since 2020 of March, they've gone to over 28,000 locations to make updates to the service changes. They've applied over 3,000 temporary suspended bus stop decals for stops that we no longer serve because of pandemic or operator shortage that we are hoping to bring back at some point, but they've done a fantastic job making sure that information's available. For our data coordinators, we have Nathan Bakken here and Ella Brackup. They work in transit information as our data coordinators. They oversee all the updates to our printed materials, our pocket schedules. They help proof our shelter and facility signage, and then they update our website, our online schedules, website schedules, as well as the data that feeds our trip planner and real-time information as well. They do a fantastic job. They start our whole process. They make sure the information that they get from service development and scheduling is accurate, but also customer friendly, translating it into customer speak so customers actually know what it means. And they've updated over 500 individual pocket schedules since March of 2020, updated the same amount of website schedules and a countless number of map updates and data requests and changes that they've made over the last 3 years and have done a fantastic job. And then Scott Bergevin here is our lead schedule display coordinator. Scott oversees all of the schedule information posted at our shelters, our facilities, our LRT and BRT posters as well. So that's over 1,300 signs that he maintains. One-person operation, but Scott does the whole job from updating the art and the graphics to getting the signs printed, installed, and then verifying the installations. Since March of 2020, he's visited over or updated over 7,500 signs, making sure that information is accurate and available for our customers, and just does a phenomenal job. Really a dedicated focus on the look of our information in the field, making sure it looks professional, and that any issues that he sees out in the shelters or facilities are reported and addressed. And then, well, here's a couple more examples here of shelter sign and then 3 map posters that Scott updates. And then just to recognize quickly the people who aren't here, our transit information specialist support specialist, Tarek Mawahid. He oversees all the back-end data that supports the changes for our bus stop signs, including the installation, print lists, and verifying all that information. So without Tarek, Dan and Natua would have a really difficult time doing their job, and he does a great job in making sure everything's updated and available. And then our creative service team, they're partners with Transit Information in this effort, and Christina McHenry and Leah Jans, both are creative services employees who work with us around service changes. Christina is a point person around pocket schedules and printed materials and has done just an amazing job. She updates all the printed and pocket schedules when changes come. She makes sure that everything's consistent, all the artwork looks the same across schedules, and then makes sure the art files get to the printer. And Leah Jans has created all the templates for our BRT signage and our LRT signage, all the maps. Every time a line opens, she's creating all the new templates that we update, and both of them are just fantastic partners and do a great job. So really proud to be a part of this team and to be able to offer the recognition to all the folks up here today. So thank you.
Good, thank you. We're going to hand out some awards. Make sure to thank those who are on a very well-deserved vacation, and tell them really we appreciate all that you guys do. Let's go hand out some awards. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, now we're on to our reports. Our first report is MTS Executive Director Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, council members. 2 updates for you on the motor vehicle sales tax. The first relates to motor vehicle sales tax receipts through May of 2023, briefly. Receipts are above forecast. MVest is performing at about 109% of forecast levels, so overperforming. The forecast had been revised downward, but it's overperforming, so roughly a wash, but good news. It means that the council's received about $13 million above the forecast through the first 5 months of 2023. So forecast of $143 million or so, actual receipts in the $158 million range that we use in our operations, that we disperse to regional providers and contribute to our reserve balances. So that's good news. The second MVest update relates to a 2023 state law change that the council will be implementing a policy change to incorporate. The transportation bill increased the sales tax rate on automobiles from 6.5% to 6.875%, which is the tax rate that the state uses for a number of other items. The law also changed the distribution formula for those funds. So previously, the council received 36% of statewide MVest receipts. Now we'll receive from 36 to 34.3% for metro area sales tax. So a smaller slice of a larger pie and the net effect of that is a small increase in total expectations, about $1 million a year. So mostly a wash in terms of the magnitude of this funding source. What it does mean is that because the council allocates this to regional providers by policy, we'll have to update that policy to reflect the new distribution formula, maintaining the same overall proportions and about the same overall funding, but it is a policy change that the council will be seeing. Because it's a policy change, it would be going to management committee for the actual business before it comes to council, but wanted transportation committee to be aware of it as it's approaching on the management committee agenda, tentatively July 12th before council action in the end of July. So wanted to provide that update here. No big shift, but just something to be aware of. On the planning side, 2 public comment items that are either just closed or will be closing shortly. The regional solicitation public comment period closed on Friday. I don't have a report of how many comments come in, but if I get one in the next 30 seconds, I'll let you know. TAB is also discussing and has begun to discuss the effects of state law change that relate to active transportation. So I mentioned last time that we're beginning to engage these committees around the 5% of the council's share of the new sales tax that would be dedicated for active transportation projects that would be determined by the TAB. So those conversations are beginning. We're also nearing the final stretch of public input for the Transportation Improvement Program. The public comment period ends on July 3rd at 5 p.m. The TIP is a listing of projects that are receiving federal funds in the next 3-year period. So it's informed by policy documents like the Transportation Policy Plan, but ultimately it's a list of projects that comprises the TIP. So that'll be closing in the future weeks, and we're accepting comments by mail, by email, and a phone comment line for anyone who wishes to comment on the TIP. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments for Charles? All right, very good. On to Metro Transit General Manager Leslie Kinderis.
All right. Madam Chair, committee members, a couple updates from Metro Transit today. First, I'm pleased to share that the Federal Transit Administration announced today their low and no emissions vehicle grant awards for their latest round of funding. And Metro Transit will receive over $17 million to advance our zero emissions bus transition. This will help fund 12 new 40-foot electric buses, the associated charging equipment, and also include some workforce development funds. So we're very excited by that news today, and certainly we'll be sharing it more widely in the coming days and weeks. And second, I just wanted to acknowledge that we had a really busy weekend, but a really successful weekend, particularly providing service to the 2 Taylor Swift concerts and also supporting all the additional people visiting Minneapolis during the Pride Festival. And Madam Chair, I'd like to ask your permission to invite up Deputy General Manager and Chief Operations Officer Brian Funk to provide a bit more information.
Absolutely, welcome, Brian. While he's walking up, congratulations, both in the weekend, but also that FTA news is wonderful.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging us to share a bit of good news from the team at Metro Transit. And so I think one of the things that the council members hopefully have taken from us is that we take our jobs very seriously every day. But when the challenges get really tough is when we really band together and show off what we're able to accomplish. And so as the general manager indicated, I'm going to run through and just sort of illustrate for everyone, how the weekend unfolded and how successful the team really was. And that, hopefully I can reiterate that it's a lot of people pulling together to make this happen. And so we had last Wednesday, in the midst of the rodeo, we had our Great Day in Transit, and so we kind of took this weekend and called it the Great Weekend in Transit. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sort of nonstop effort on all fronts. And so Friday and Saturday night, we had Taylor Swift invading US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. the likes of which we really hadn't seen for concerts before. And so there was some call to question about our preparedness and our ability to serve the fans. I can certainly assure you that in the operations area, we didn't have any doubts that we were going to be able to pull this together, and all the pieces did come together, as I'll illustrate. Just a recap with some details for each of the 2 nights. So the good news is we didn't have disruptions to our regular service for people who are using the line for purposes other than the concerts. We had both of the concerts ended within 1 minute of each other. Taylor Swift runs a very tight program and matched it. On Saturday night, of course, the thunderstorm started literally as the concert ended, and so that added some additional urgency for the team to show its stuff. On each of the nights, we had those additional trips that were departing from downtown as we had promised. And so Friday night, we had 6 extra blue line trains and 4 green, and then the same but with 1 more blue on Saturday night. In each case, the platform was clear, meaning all fans who had come out of the venue they were on a train in less than an hour, which is pretty good because by the last person in line certainly was not in line for an hour. And most of the folks on Saturday night, you could tell who came out early because they were drenched. And then the people who maybe waited in line for the extra T-shirt or run to the restroom were very dry. So by that time, people were coming out and it was dry again. So, and then just to be certain that we had served everyone who was counting on us, we ran 2 extra trips even after that platform clear time at 60 and 90 minutes after concert end. And so we're very confident that folks were able to get that trip out of downtown. Rail was certainly the showcase and centerpiece right at US Bank Stadium, but our large bus network was also strained, both from a ridership perspective, but also from street traffic. If anyone happened to be downtown, the roads were pretty gridlocked for a long time after the concert with the parking ramps letting out. People who did not hop on transit were faced with that. And then our buses navigating the system were also late. And so our bus control center, street operations team, and of course the bus operators were filling trips all across the network to make sure that our customers were getting that reliable on-time service. And happily, in coordination with transit police, happy to report that we had no public safety issues down at the concert venue or for people who were leaving that venue. So that was a very successful night by all measures, both Friday and then again Saturday. The media coverage and customer response proved to be very favorable. Night 1, I think, was met with, what's it going to be like? And then night 2 was more met with positive reviews and additional encouragement for people to utilize that type of service to be able to get out of town, get away from the venue after the concert. Here are the folks that make it happen, so just a few of the slides. So this is our ambassador team from Friday night, and these folks are all working, regular full-time jobs for Metro Transit, across finance and operations, transit information, maintenance, all over the place. But they show up and help to guide customers who really are not familiar. This may be the first and only time that somebody left US Bank trying to figure out, how do I get home? And so these folks are there to make sure that they can get helped out. This is a snapshot of our light rail field operations team. So we can't just run trains in and out normally without an extra set of hands to be guiding. The way that the numbers work out, when I was showing you the 10 or 11 trains in under an hour, that means that the trains are pulling in, literally 30 seconds after one another. Most of the time is spent, as you'll see, allowing people to fill up those trains. So it's not our travel time that dictates that. It's usually just how long it takes to be able to board those trains. And this was the crew on Saturday night that did it safely in coordination with the train operators in our rail control center. You had a little bit of a support team. We were mostly trying to stay out of the way, but being out there was really important to us. We all love this stuff and want to make sure that our folks know that we're there to support, and I won't dwell on that anymore. The bus resources, I mentioned the buses that were used across our network. In addition, we had both heat on Friday night and then the severe weather possibility on Saturday night. So dedicating a sheltering resource for the staff who was working out in the field is another thing that we did, while still being able to have a really nice advertisement right outside US Bank Stadium. So here's just an overhead picture from the pedestrian bridge of what a sort of full platform looks like as the train is pulling in. And so, the operators, in coordination with those on-site ambassadors, are making sure that people aren't stepping in the way of the train and that they're staying back when people are very urgently trying to, get on. And so we got to do that safely, and they really have it down to a science. And so here you can see the rain if you look closely, and this is actually a video, so I'll play it in a second. But Nathan, who just received an award, is a gentleman in the vest, sort of to the right of the picture there. And he has his job on Saturday night was working the bullhorn to make sure everybody knew what to expect and what train was coming in. And the crowd was cheering as each train arrived because they were just they were happy to get moving. So I'll make sure that this plays here.
All right, everyone, we are going to once the train passes,
So fun operation. Again, keeping in mind that it's safe, but more than anything, it's about the happy customers and making sure that we had enough people on, that it was a full train. We weren't, wasting resources, but still giving people a really good experience. And so we're really proud of the work that was done at US Bank those 2 nights. And then early on Sunday morning, a team rolled in, and employees gathered together from, again, across the agency with friends and family to march in the Pride Parade in downtown Minneapolis. And so the bus was our float, and we walked in the parade with branded T-shirts and logoed gear. Just a few of the shots. It was a great reception. People were really happy to hear and see that Metro Transit, being part of the community, is welcoming to all, and it was a really good time. Skip was a hit, especially with the little ones, and so that was a lot of fun. Again, our bus was our float, and so it was pretty cool to be able to see that. Marissa, our operator, had a great time to make sure that people were cheering for that bus, outfitted with a sound system, playing fun music so everybody could dance and have a great time. We had C and D line buses that were crossing the route right in front of us, so we were able to cheer them on. And it wasn't orchestrated quite that way, but it worked out really nice that we were able to support each other. So, and then finally, this is just this quote that I get some of these daily leadership quotes, but this one showed up in my inbox this morning, and I think that first paragraph really encompasses what Metro Transit is about. And it's a culture strong when people work with each other and for each other. And that's something that was embodied, especially over the weekend, but I think is strong every day. So just wanted to share that with the group as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So before we turn to questions, I think we should give Metro Transit a round of applause. And please relay that to everyone. I mean, I know that historically we always did lots of big events like the Final Four and the Super Bowl, lots of Vikings, Gophers games, but something this big is probably the first, I'd say, really big weekend like this since COVID. So it's really fun to see that not only did it go, we did everything, but people were having fun. And that sense of community, both within Metro Transit, but out with the community, was really there. So thank you very much, Brian. Tell everyone thank you.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, one thing that I shared with our senior management team this morning is that being out in the field over the weekend and talking to operators and supervisors, especially we have a lot of people have started since we've had to do one of these mega events. And so for them, a lot of the feedback was, I'm really glad we get to do this because I hear everybody else talking about the Super Bowl or the Final Four. They're like, I want my thing. I want to talk about what we did, what I contributed. And so that ownership and seeing new faces, people new in role, stepping up and making it happen was really rewarding as well.
Well, that's great. That's great. Anything else? before we-
No, Madam Chair, but happy to
right.
take questions.
All right, Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, and I'm glad that the chair directed us to give you an applause because you all truly were heroes, and we're very, very thankful for the services that were provided to our entire community and all the guests that were with us this weekend. I know there was a lot of trepidation before this started because we have not been accustomed to these large events in the recent past 2 or 3 years. And so this was a really big and important success for us. We had the opportunity to be at the City Council in St. Paul together with our chief this past week. And there were questions about not just this event, but how, in fact, as we are coming back, getting back on track, as one of the council persons said, how we are able to communicate. I was able to generally share, what our plans are as we're thinking about communications and the town hall meetings and, the variety of ways in which we're responding to questions as well, using our social media, et cetera. I know that there was so much trepidation because it was felt that we weren't able to provide that notice early. Can you talk a little bit about how we got the word out? It certainly doesn't look like people didn't know,
Yeah, Madam Chair and Council Member, no, it's a great point, and that was one of the, it was sort of one of the questions is that, as I said, many of us are very much accustomed to planning for these events and understanding what our resource needs are. And in this case, it was, a lot of it, was really, the question was asked for exact certainty, 12 to 14 days in advance, when certainty within operations is day before or day of. And so trying to strike that balance of instilling confidence without promising something that had some element of risk to it, and working on how do we communicate that we are preparing and we're doing everything we can and we're confident that that this will be handled properly, without saying the exact number or the exact time, because our experience tells us, and even in this case, that the number of trips required is going to be slightly different. The duration it'll take could be a little bit different, and so trying to answer that was one of the elements that was a little bit different with this, partially, I believe, as you had stated, because of the timing coming on the heels of 2 or 3 years without the mega events, and it's a long weekend, and so is fatigue going to set in? You can do it one night, but can you do it a second night and a third day? And so all of those things, I think, are lessons learned for us, and I know that the general manager and myself and our communications team, we're doing an after action, just to walk through what is that, strategy and how do we communicate as much as we can proactively and just make sure that there's confidence, and then also a promise to communicate honestly if something isn't setting up according to plan as we get closer.
Well, thank you very much. I just know that people are feeling encouraged that we were able to step up and meet this challenge this weekend, and it gives confidence moving forward as we are getting back on track, that we're moving forward aggressively, positively, and in service to our community. Thank you so much.
Additional questions or comments? All right, I'll just say thank you again, and I think it's so good as we bring back transit service to show those pictures of all the people on transit, because as we know, transit itself works better the more people that are on it in general. So, very good. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Leslie. Now we are on to our next thing, which is the TAB report, and we have Mr. DeGan here. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Director Carlson. Brian, great job. General Manager Candaris, and Jenna, I forgot to acknowledge you last time. You run the whole show, okay. And I'm sorry, Madam Carter, I didn't get a chance to meet you. I did meet Dr. Carter and Councilmember Tolkar. I represent your district as a citizen member, so I work for you. I'm trying to keep my day job. I know Elaine Kazukoulis from the TAB sends out a summary report, and I'll mirror this. We had, I'll start out in reverse. The PROTECT program, which is promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation, will be brought to you July 17th, so I won't bring that up tonight. That will be, I think, Madam Chair, 24 million additional, I believe, this year. So we had two.
17.
17, okay, thank you. I was trying to get it up. Anyway, on your agenda tonight are two consent items for streamlined tip. We had those as well. And to repeat a little bit from our last meeting, a tip amendment is permitted. A streamlined tip amendment is permitted when it's in accordance with the transportation policy plan. It is not regionally significant, and it does not relate to a formal scope change. We have not gone through scope changes yet, but a scope change to a project can be an administrative, the width of a bike path, okay, or bringing on an e-bus as opposed to a diesel bus. The next grade up is informal scope changes, and those would include something like a traffic signal to a roundabout, pedestrian overpass to an underpass, and they go through a level of scrutiny at MnDOT. And then if it can't be a streamlined tip amendment if it is a formal scope change, and that it would be something such as, which Metro Transit would never do, reducing frequency hours of transit, changing of the number of travel lanes on a roadway, going from a bridge replacement to a bridge rehabilitation. And the question is always asked, what is regionally significant? Again, according to the CFR, regionally significant means just what it says, something major to the transportation system, a new terminal, a new sports complex, or regional mall, or downtown office park. Okay, so that is the essence of streamlined tip. Oh, and Madam Tolkar, we are trying to find your nameplate, but it's missing. Oh, there it is. I do wish. And in terms of the next item on the summary sheet were two program year change requests. They're not coming to you now, but they will be coming to you, and if you don't mind, I'll explain what that means. When the money is granted from the regional solicitation, the folks who get it, the project leaders, have so many years to, it goes into a program year. And by that program year, for instance, and the next solicitation will be putting out for 2026 money and beyond. It has to meet certain criteria to get authorization to move forward. The authorization is done by, if it's a highway project, construction or right-of-way, it's done by the Federal Highway Administration, which designates MnDOT to do it locally. If it's a transit program, it's obviously under the auspices of Metro Transit. And it has to meet certain criteria to be authorized. And it's almost like it is a checklist of dates, environmental study, anything that's needed, and you have to meet those dates. But if you find out by April 1st of that year that you can't make it, you can apply for a program year extension one time for 1 year. And also that the project leaders take the chance that the federal funds may not be available when that comes back for authorization. I don't think that's ever happened, but they have to rely on their own funds until then. So it's April 1st, you've got to apply. If by June 15th you haven't applied, the project essentially will not be carried over into the TIP, and it doesn't get a 1-year extension. And no inflation. If you go out a couple of years, inflation rises, that's your responsibility. To get a program year change request, you've got to give the project background, the process, the progress, where you are in it, show you've been diligent, and then the justification. And then one gets, and I will just show this to you. This is the application, and it's very extensive, and you must get 7 out of 10 points to qualify. If you don't get the 7, it's not discussed. And by way of example, the two program year extensions that were asked for, one was granted, and again, as an example, it's the Highway 252 project, Corridors of Commerce. Well, the FHWA decided that because of they are connected actions, meaning one can't take place until the other does, so they're interdependent. Because they are connected in the environmental area, they must do a more extensive environmental investigation, and the FHWA would not allow the project to go through even if the project originators wanted it to go. So that was considered a legitimate exception. They'd already asked for a program year extension. This came in as an exception to the 1 year, one time, because of something beyond their control. And it has led to the next project being tabled and for further discussion within the tab, within Director Carlson, Chair Barber, about program year extensions when there are so many projects that are individual but now becoming interconnected, like Highway 252, the Corridors of Commerce. In this case, it was asking for a change because of the Blue Line and the difficulties they've had with getting the railroad permission, which they didn't get. And that was tabled primarily because it wasn't certain if everything would be settled by the program year they were asking for primarily, and that, so, we decided to wait, Charles, if I'm not mistaken. So that's two examples of program year extensions. And the other, I just thought I would start introducing what the tab is. I know whenever I'm asked what the tab is, usually people's eyes roll. No. The tab is set up by the council, and it runs the regional solicitation, which is taking money from the federal government, congestion and air mitigation money, and surface block transport money, and distributes it among the 7-county metro area. And it's also responsible for the Transportation Improvement Program, which is required by the federal government every 4 years to indicate all major transportation programs within the system, even if they're not regionally have regional solicitation money. And the makeup of that makeup of tab is by regulation, or is it a statute? I'm not sure.
State statute, Peter.
State statute, okay, wow. So one member from MnDOT, one from the PCA, one from MAC, one non-motorized, one freight, 2 public transit representatives, 10 elected officials, one has to be from St. Paul and another from Minneapolis, and then 8 other cities selected by the metro cities, a county board member from each of the 7 counties, 1 suburban transit authority representative, Madam Chair from the council, and then 8 citizen members, of which I am one, and serve Councilmember Dolkar's district. And I think that's it, unless there are any questions, but I do want to compliment Brian and, of course, Madam General Manager. I went to the Pride Festival. I found my way. I mean, it was pretty slick. I mean, the hardest thing here is I can't get this to fold back up. I cannot figure how that works. Anyway, it was absolutely fabulous. And how you did both in one night, wow. Anyway, I was in a booth and my shift was over at 6, so I get on the train and all the fans were coming. It's just starting. Just starting. And how you pulled off all those people, oh my gosh. And then when we drove by US Bank Stadium, the number of people there just waiting outside, I mean, and security. And lastly, I counted 15 semi-trailers at the loading dock, 15. No wonder she didn't return my cell phone call. And I apologize, but I have to leave early. because my wife is out of town visiting relatives, and I have a dog that's home, has been there alone for 7 hours, and I think you know where I'm going. Anyway, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions or comments?
Oh, yes, Dr. Carter.
I just had a quick question, just a little bit of understanding. You talked about the Protect funding. Could you give me like a quick summary of what Protect is?
Charles, Director Carlson, may I defer to you?
Sure, Madam Chair, council member. In essence, it's climate resilience funding for transportation infrastructure. So the projects that have been identified for these funds, one would lift the roadway out of a floodplain. I think similar type work on the other project, but stormwater management, floodplain mitigation, basically resilience to the impacts of climate change.
Okay, thanks.
And just to follow up, now one of the projects that was funded through this is out Highway 5, kind of west of the Arboretum. So kind of a joint, somewhat shared project between our districts that, are very important to the board members in Carver County. So they're very happy right now. All right,
Just one clarification in Peter's remarks.
please, thank you.
Program year change requests do not come through the council. They begin and end only at tab. So this body won't see a program year extension request, just so you know.
And I won't invite you back next year. Thank you, Director Carlson. I appreciate that.
Thank you both. Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Dugan. That was very good, as usual, presentation, and thanks for the update on what happens with the extensions and the great thought that went into whether or not we should that TAB should make a decision on that day. I'm glad that they will continue discussions on how to handle the extensions and looking at the current precedents and processing. So thank you very much. And I would encourage our Transportation Committee members to attend or watch a TAB meeting. The work that they do is amazing and very good contributors to what we have at Met Council.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And as I said, under the leadership of the chair, that issue will be discussed because of the precedent but many big projects coming. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I would echo Councilmember Chambliss's statement of trying to attend TAB or listen to it. It is a very different dynamic. It's a very large group, and it's just a different kind of conversation. And I think it's very interesting because it's intended to represent the entire region and different interests. So it's a great way to see just another layer of how some of the transportation funding works. So, all right, any additional questions, comments? All right, very good. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Then we are on to business. Our first item is the consent agenda. There are 2 items on consent, so I would entertain a motion to approve the items on consent.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cameron. Is there a second?
Second.
And by Councilmember Tony Carter. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the items on consent are adopted. And we are on to our non-consent business item. The first item is business number 2023-117, which is a Northstar light rail systems. And we have Michael Guse and Jody Jacoby here to present. And the first 2 items, the presentation will really cover the first 2 items.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I'm Michael Guse, Project Manager, Rail Transportation, Rail Technical Operations.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody Jacoby, and I'm the Director of the Procurement Department.
Today we bring to you business item 2023-117, Northstar SCADA and PACIS system and 2 light rail systems. The proposed action is that the council authorizes the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a sole source agreement with WebTech Corporation to program Northstar SCADA and PACIS into the existing light rail system in an amount not to exceed $800,000. A little background on this. In 2022, WebTech Corporation purchased Collins Aerospace Errant Rail Solutions segment. It's a lot. With that purchase, the good news is now we just call them WebTech. they acquired the company that light rail uses in our supervisor control and data acquisition software, and the public address and customer information system known as PACIS. Prior to Wabtec's purchase, there was already a business relationship with Wabtec and the Northstar Maintenance Department for maintenance and support of the positive train control system used on Northstar engines and equipment. With the merger complete, Wabtec has proprietary equipment and software in use in light rail operations, light rail systems maintenance, and Northstar departments. For this reason, we are obtaining a master contract with them. Over the next 5 years, Metro Transit Engineering will lead multiple projects to maintain a state of good repair on blue line and green lines, as also work with initiatives to improve overall traffic flow with our traffic partners, City of Minneapolis and City of St. Paul.
All right, thanks, Michael. I'm here to talk a little bit, just to provide some overview on what a master contract is, to define the terms, and then to explain what type of master contract this is related to the work. So first, there's two different types of master contracts that come before you for your approval. And the first one is a request for proposal, where we have a specific scope of work and we're asking for respondents. And then the council can award more than one contract, if you will. So sometimes it's by disciplines, sometimes we just need a number of contractors on contract to be able to deploy the work. And the second type is more specific to what you have before you today, a master contract for a umbrella or scope of work with a framework that has high-level standard terms and conditions, such as insurance and other contract provisions for future work. And under the master contract, there'll be specific work orders, which if it's in your signature authority, you'll see the business item to approve that. But there'll be a project manager assigned, and they'll be operating from that umbrella terms and conditions. And then depending on their work, there may be additional terms and conditions that are added as a result. One example of an additional term and condition could be a warranty provision that might be added, again, based on specific work. Or we could require additional insurance. But this is that type of master contract where we're coming before you with the master of umbrella terms and conditions to help the council and the business units move forward. This is a result of a continuous improvement to really streamline the process, and you have some of those benefits and those specific items outlined on the slide before you. But really, it's just been a fantastic partnership of procurement staff with the business units. We're able to move forward much quicker with the terms and conditions negotiated ahead of time. And so it's able to meet the business needs, and then for the business unit to really have more certainty with when the projects are actually going to be delivered. And again, we execute individual purchase orders or work orders underneath the master. And before, when we were negotiating individual contracts, for example, with Wabtec, it would take about 6 months. It's a lot of negotiation. There are a lot of high-level risks that the council needs to take into consideration. This is specifically beneficial as well because Wabtec is a sole source. We're not able to contract with any other provider at this time. So it's really for flexibility, for consistency, and schedule predictability. And then we're able to negotiate better pricing because we're able to move forward faster with the execution since we have that umbrella of terms and conditions already in place. The next slide. So this is a list of about at least 10 known projects that will fall under the master contract with again, those terms and conditions that are already pre-negotiated. And they, again, looked at some of the insurance, some of the risk, and outlines the roles of the parties and the responsibilities. And additionally, compliance with state law and federal funding. Now, not all of these projects will come before you because of their individual work order amount. However, some of the projects that are believed that you'll see an individual business item for because of their value are outlined in bold on this slide.
So while Metro Transit led this effort, procurement, risk management through Phil Wall-Jasper, and information services all came together to have this master contract with terms and conditions that will apply to all work orders over the course of the next 5 years with Wabtec. Need to give you a little explanation of SCADA. I started with that at the beginning, the Supervisor Control and Data Acquisition Software. This is the software that monitors the computer systems that are located in the field and at platforms on our light rail and Northstar systems. When a piece of equipment fails in the field, the control center gets an alarm or gets a message, depending on the severity of the situation, and then they're able to analyze the situation and make contact with the right field tech who would be able to report out to that scene and address that situation. The picture here happens to be of our platform edge heat screen. This was in a test mode, but you can see some of the various indications that are available to us on this particular screen. Are things on? Are they off? Is it currently snowing? Is it not? Is the platform edge itself clear by sensor detection? Are things in normal condition? Is there an alarm? Is it too hot? Is it a high temp? You know, is it basically just sitting there burning because it malfunctioned somehow? So this is one very small example of our SCADA screen. The system overall is many, I think we figure we get about 15,000 points of data per light rail line. So we're currently sitting at about 30,000 with blue and green as we know it today, and we'll throw another 15,000 points in with Green Line West extension. The other one that's really important to everybody is PACIS, Public Address Customer Information System. This is a system that controls and monitors the public address speakers and reader boards, and this is where the control center is able to update messages. If there is a desire for a no smoking message, the control center can program it to play at a scheduled interval or at an instance notice if they needed to or wanted to. Severe weather messages come across here. We program that when we get notified of severe weather. Obviously, train delays, service conditions are reported out here. And then also the computer system looking at where trains are at and giving the arrival prediction time is run through this. Currently, Northstar and LRT are in separate systems. What we're doing here is moving it into one system for ease of training, ease of maintenance, and then also just making the system more reliable going forward. So, as we said at the beginning, the proposed action is that the council would authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a sole source agreement with Wabtec to program Northstar, SCADA, and PACIS into the existing light rail system, not to exceed $800,000. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Michael, Jody. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you very much for what is an informative presentation. I appreciate that you've given good information and still I have questions. And it's simply about the form of the contract, the total amount of the contract. Without seeing the contract, the wording in the presentation suggests that we're doing this to enable work over time that does not exceed the $800,000 as the total amount inside the master authorization. And then the first project actually is not to exceed $800,000, which suggests there are likely no more projects, if in fact that authorization is used, which kind of makes me wonder about the convenience and the aspects of utility of the master contract.
I totally appreciate that question, Council Member and Chair. There's two pieces here. There's the master, and the master is what's going to help cover those list of projects. That currently has a $0 amount to it. Those projects together might be upwards of $5 million. The first project within that list is this one, and this specific project is limited to $800,000.
Okay. I don't see the 5 million anywhere in terms of the master contract. And without the contract, again, it's hard to know what are the bounds of the master. So could you just repeat that again for me so I can get this in my head?
Yeah, Chair Barber, Councilmember Carter, as Michael explained, our intent first was to bring the master forward, and the master is $0. And it's really that umbrella, that framework that we agreed to with terms and conditions, appropriate insurance. And then each of the work orders will have an individual amount that's unique to the work with their own mini contract under it. So this specific contract, I appreciate your question.
I get it.
I don't think we were as clear, but this specific contract snaps up into some of those 10 contracts that at this time that we know about that will reside underneath the umbrella or the master.
Okay. So actually, the master is just that. We don't know. We can do this work. If it falls over the amount that can be provided in the department, then it comes to the Met Council to approve. If it doesn't, if it goes by department guidelines, then the department can approve and work forward. Thank you. It was just the wording in here that confused me a little bit. That said, I do also note that because this is a sole source contract, there is no specificity around DBE goals. And I wonder, not about this specific contract, well, actually I do, with no DBE goals on a master, how does that work? Are the DBE goals going to be set on each work order, or are we suggesting that there will be no DBE goals underneath this sole source contract?
Yeah. Madam Chair, Councilmember Carter, DBE goals are set based on the specific project and the number of DBE or MCUB subcontracting firms available. And it is my understanding that at this time there are no DBE or MCUB subcontracting opportunities. However, I know that the business unit and the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity are always looking at the work and determining if there are opportunities. But at this time, there are none. But each of these projects that are underneath the master, depending on the work and depending on the number of contractors, that could change.
So for this specific work order, based on availability data, there are no contractors and there will be no DBE goal. So it isn't just because it's a sole source, because even a sole source contractor, of course, can have a DBE goal. Am I right?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilmember, you are correct. And in fact, that's been a really big change that the council's business units have made deliberately and intentionally. Even emergency declarations in the last few years, the IS department has awarded multiple emergency declarations, and we have awarded sole sources directly to primes as MCUB vendors. So it really depends on the work.
So I would just ask then that as we put this information forward, the reasoning for the lack of a DBE goal be corrected. It's really because of lack of availability, not because it's sole source. And so I don't want to assume that whenever we have a sole source contract come before us, it will not have a DBE goal.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Carter, I think that's a really important item to note as we're preparing the information and as we're doing our due diligence.
I appreciate that. I'm not really sure where I read it. It was likely in the material and not in the presentation. I couldn't find it as I look back, but I know I saw it.
Yes, Councilmember Carter, it's in the small business inclusion section of the business item. And often when you see where there wasn't a DBE assigned, it's usually because there isn't someone available, but I think it's good to put the clarifying language into business items when we can. Additional, Councilmember Cameron?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity on the sole source piece and just make sure that I understand this correctly. So for the list of upcoming projects from WABTech, is it that, this, I'm not gonna say it correctly, the SCADA and the PACIS, thank you. Are there other items on this list that can also only be provided by WABTech, or are some of these competitive bids that are now falling under the master contract? Yeah, that's my question.
Madam Chair Barber and Member Cameron, these items will all go to WebTech because these items need to support the software system.
Okay.
So it's all, if you're writing a program for Microsoft, you always got to go to Microsoft. And that's essentially the same thing here.
Okay, so there's no other providers who would be able to provide this, any of these other projects going forward?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dworshak.
Madam Chair, thank you. And thank you to both of you for the great explanation. I was wondering what they were, if they were merging the two, but I have a request, and it's to the staff and the chair. I'm wondering if we could do like a full presentation of DBE goals for all transportation, or if we have as an institution goals that we have set for transportation-based projects. What I'm realizing is that these committees, we hear a lot of projects and we have a lot of items that we are approving for. And I think we're asking the same questions over and over again. So I think a general sort of overview of when those goals were established, what they are, and what we would like to do moving forward. I think that type of a presentation would be extremely helpful. So this is for the contracting staff and the chair.
And what I'll do is Jody and I will connect with Sam O'Connell and decide, depending on our agenda loads, it gets worse for us as we go throughout the year. But I know that, especially for our new council members, you're getting information sessions that maybe we add on some extra ones for transportation specific and aligning with the work, because we do set DBE goals overall for the council. So, and those go through typically through management committee.
So just as a clarification, I think there's a value in us knowing as the new council members, but I also think it's dismal that every year the state fails to meet its DBE goal for transportation projects. And so I would like to have a discussion as a committee members, if possible, in this committee.
Possibly. So like I said, we also do this at management committee, so let me consult with my fellow chair as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-117.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dworshak. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Next, we're on to business item 2023-131. It's associated ones, positive train control, but we have Jeremy Spilde here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. My name's Tony Hebert, Director of Northstar Commuter Rail.
My name's Jeremy Spilde. I'm the maintenance manager for Northstar Commuter Rail.
Before Jeremy goes into the maintenance support agreements, I just want to go over a little bit of positive train control and how we arrived where we're at today. Positive train control was established as part of the Railroad Safety Improvement Act of 2008, and it required all railroads to install and implement positive train control on the systems. The system's designed to prevent train-to-train collisions, overspeeds, derailments, incursions into established work zones, and the movement of trains into tracks that are misproperly aligned. switches are misproperly aligned. Northstar established this system back in 2017 and been operating successfully since then. And now I'll turn it over to Jeremy to go over the contract.
Madam Chair and committee members, I'm here to present business item 2023-131. It's the Positive Train Control Agreement, Maintenance Support Agreement with Wabtec, contract 23 Mike 005 Alpha. This contract is associated with that master contract with Wabtec. So Northstar has been operating positive train control system on our trains for 6 years now. This is a requirement by the Federal Railroad Administration that all railroads have a positive train control system on their trains, including for passenger rail. We have a Wabtec system on our trains, and with the Wabtec system, they require us to have a maintenance support agreement for the proprietary software system that runs on the trains and for any technical support we might need. We are now at the renewal point for that contract. The funding is available in the Northstar's operating budget. It's a council-approved budget. Northstar's requests the Metropolitan Council to authorize the regional administrator to execute sole source contract with Wabtec Railway Electronics for the maintenance support agreement in the amount of, and not to exceed, the $990,000. At this time, I'll take any questions you might have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-131.
Motion to approve?
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we are on to business item 2023-129, a same week item. It's implementation of the Transit Fare Elimination Pilot Program, and we have Dennis Dworshak and Christine Kinning here. Welcome.
Madam Chair, council members, Dennis Dworshak, Revenue Operations Senior Manager.
And Christine Cannon, I'm the Senior Manager of Metro Mobility.
Madam Chair, council members, we're here to present business item 2023-129, same week, implementation of the Transit Fare Elimination Program. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council implement a legislatively mandated transit fare elimination pilot program on Metro Transit routes 32 and 62 from July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. And from July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024, provide a regular route free service of charge to individuals for a certified disabled under American Disability Act requirements of the Federal Transit Administration or federal or certified eligibility for transit service under Minnesota statutes 473.386, subdivision 2A, and to direct staff to submit the required legislative report on February 15th, 2025. Okay, we'll review the background information. The 2023 Transportation Finance Bill requires that the council implement the transit fare elimination pilot program starting July 1st for 18 months. The transit service underneath this program must provide free transit service or reduced fare service on 2 regular routes. The free or reduced service must be implemented for each route during both peak and non-peak hours. Metro Transit staff analyzed and identified Route 32 and 62 as the best routes for this pilot program. Both routes serve people who are dependent on transit, people of color, people with low incomes, a East Metro and a West Metro communities route. Each of these routes include a mix of core local and supporting local service. Selecting these routes, these areas will help evaluate how routes respond to free transit service. Staff analyzed and concluded that free fares rather than reduced fares provide the best incentive to increase ridership. It meets the intent of the legislation It is the easiest to implement by the legislature's July 1st deadline, which is coming very soon. It provides faster boarding time for our customers and provides for a simple transfer policy. We are not going to issue transfers on this program. A Title VI fare equity analysis is required and applies for all fare changes, regardless of the amount of increase or decrease. So we will have this evaluation completed sometime later this week, and we will present that evaluation at the next meeting, hopefully.
During the pilot program, the legislation requires that the council provide regular route transit service free of charge to individuals who are certified as disabled under the FTA's ADA eligibility requirements or certified by the council as eligible for Metro Mobility service. The free fare service to Metro Mobility riders applies to all regular route service, not just the 2 pilot program regular routes. The council has met with regional providers to coordinate implementation of this council-established fare policy change for the metropolitan area. Consistent with FTA regulations for complimentary paratransit service for ADA paratransit eligible persons, Metro Mobility customers will ride fare-free for rides with origins and destinations within 3/4 miles of the route on each side of the 2 selected regular routes. So that is for a total width of 1.5 miles around each of the selected routes. As the pilot program is implemented, the council will develop an approach to evaluate the pilot project, and by February 15th, 2025, submit to the legislature a report that includes an overview of the pilot program implementation, an evaluation of the effects of ridership, travel time, service equity, and rider experience, and other measures of quality of life, a review of fiscal impacts, including foregone revenues, costs related to service changes, and potential cost efficiencies, an analysis of barriers, best practices, economic impacts, and other considerations, and any recommendations regarding any subsequent implementation of free or reduced fare transit service. An overview of the pilot program was presented to the council at its June 14, 2023 meeting, and that presentation included information on the 2 proposed routes. The 2023 Transportation Omnibus legislation requires the council to establish this pilot program by July 1st of 2023. The council normally would initiate proposed fare changes under its Transit Fare Policy Changes Policy, FM 12-2, and Transportation Service Fare Policy Changes Procedures, FM 12-2A. But the legislatively prescribed fare changes and deadline for implementing this pilot program do not allow the council sufficient time to apply its fare changes policy and procedure.
This pilot program advances the Thrive MSP 2040 regional outcomes by examining the impacts of the free transit rides to increase transit ridership, and also the results of reducing barriers for people to ride transit while using our data-driven approaches. The funding for this will be local funding through the transportation operating budgets, and we will be happy to answer any questions you guys have at this time.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair. I was very interested in getting the details when this was first presented to the council as a pilot, that program that we were awarded. I am very interested in finding out the results of the evaluation of the program and the economic impacts. Hopefully we'll get some good nuggets from this pilot and understand whether or not better access to services makes a difference on the financial standing of the users of transit. So I'm sure we'll get a report on the evaluation criteria that gets developed by February 15th and what is learned along the way. Pilot programs are great. I'm glad that we get to do those at the Met Council.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments? Councilmember Dolkar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we limited, let me ask this question differently. Are we allowed to expand the pilot program, or are we limited to the 2 routes and Metro Mobility Service?
Madam Chair, council member, yes, at this time, we're limited just to the 2 routes that we have right now and the Metro Mobility free rides that we are offering for our customers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-129, same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vento. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Dolkar. All right, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Thank you. And we are on to our final business item for the evening, which is business item 2023-127, small bus procurement. And we have Paul Colton here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm Paul Colton, the Fleet Manager for MTS. And this afternoon, I have for your consideration the following proposed action: that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a contract with Model 1, formerly Creative Bus Sales, for up to 6 accessible low-floor buses in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000. All 6 of these buses will be replacement buses in the MVTA system, small buses being ordered, replacing buses that have reached the end of their useful life several years ago. The funding for this project is in the authorized capital program budget. Project 36183 is our 2 buses. Those are the oldest buses. And what I wanted to bring to your attention on this is they were in another contract. However, the bus manufacturer that's represented was purchased by another bus manufacturer who dropped that line of bus. And so we had to start the process all over again to search for a bus manufacturer and a contract that we could purchase off of that would meet the federal requirements. Finally, we need to get MVTA back up to a state of good repair. I am told by their staff that right now, several of their routes are being operated by their 40-foot buses because a number of the small cutaway buses are not able to run. So this purchase will help us get us back to a state of good repair in the small bus fleet with MVTA. We will be purchasing these buses utilizing the state of Oklahoma cooperative agreement, which we are allowed to do. This is the same contract we purchased the Metro Mobility minivans with. And so these vehicles are also one of the vehicles offered in the state of Oklahoma contract. With that, I would be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you, Paul. Questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, these low floor, do we have low floor buses right now? Or is this a new line of buses for handicap?
Chair Barber, council member, we do have some low floor cutaway buses in our fleet. Most of them are operated by Minnesota Valley Transit Authority. They're a more expensive bus because of the amount of labor it goes in to drop the chassis off of a normal one down to the low floor. And so the labor in that is pretty extensive. We did pilot several in the Metro Mobility service to give them a try. We did not feel that the value of the vehicle at the price that we were paying to operate the service and the maintenance costs of those were a good match for our program. MVTA in the fixed route service realm has found these to be good on routes where they have limited ridership, ease of access, and that sort of thing. And so as part of our policy, because of the expense of these vehicles, we require a 7-year life on these vehicles versus a 5-year life on the standard cutaway vehicles. I probably answered way more than what you asked.
Good.
Sorry
I was
about
just
that.
trying to get a visualization, so
Yeah.
you did a good job. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-127.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilmember Chalice, second by Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
committee. Thank you.
Very good. And that concludes our business for tonight. So we have no agenda items. Just of note again, starting in July, we move to Haywood, and you will get information on where to go and to manage all of that. And that'll be July 10th. I won't be there that night, so Vice Chair Chambliss is kind enough to chair the meeting. But before we leave, one of the other things that we do at this time of year is we change recording secretaries because Jenna works out of Robert Street. And so we're going to thank Jenna for all the work. So thank you. Oh, I have to tell see, this is why we like her. She's correcting me. So I think all of the items except the same week item can go on consent if everyone agrees. All right, very good. Anything else? All right, seeing nothing else, we are adjourned.